Lizards are amazing, but my favorite ones are the ones that hang out in the trees, arboreal lizards. So today, let's go over the top 5 tree-loving arboreal lizards. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. I think that, of course, arboreal lizards are maybe more difficult to keep for some people, but I think that they're better for a lot of people too, and they make more fun enclosures because you can give them space this way and this way. So I love them, I think they're great, and there's a lot of them that I'm not going to put on the list, things like monkey tail skinks, Fiji banded iguanas. There's a lot of great options, but I really did a lot of effort in thinking about the ones that are the best for most people, and those are the ones we're going to talk about today. And yes, I just mentioned Fiji banded iguanas to make you jealous if you live in the US. Sorry about that. Let's start off with number 5, false chameleons. So we're bearded anoles. So Cuban false chameleons come from Cuba. They're not actually chameleons, and that's why they're called Cuban false chameleons. They have those eyes that move in different directions at the same time, just like a real chameleon. However, they have the same sort of feet as anoles. So anoles can climb walls and climb glass and things like that. They don't have the pincher feet like chameleons do. So I think that it's really interesting that they look so similar, even though there are no chameleon species anywhere near Cuba or surrounding islands. So I don't understand how that convergent evolution happened, but it's really cool to think about. And the diet of these guys is really cool in captivity too, because they basically just eat insects. Now in the wild, there are snail eaters first. That's what they eat the most of the time. That's why they have these big crushing jaws. They usually are really good for handling, but if you were to get bit by one, it would probably suck a bit because they have very strong jaws. It's not the teeth, it's the pressure. Now, of course, in captivity, you're not gonna really feed them snails. You can feed them snails from a can or snails that are meant to be fed off to humans, but don't feed snails into your garden because you don't really know what's in them in terms of pesticides. It's not a good idea. Don't do that. Number 4, this is for those of you who have tons and tons of money that you don't know what to do with. Emerald tree monitors or green tree monitors. These are amazing pets. I am in love with the way that these animals look, the way they act. They have those curly little tails, which is so cool because most monitors, especially ones that are terrestrial, will use their tail as a defense mechanism. These animals curl their tail up, don't use it as a defense mechanism for slapping or whipping or whatever you want to call it, because it's so valuable to them because it's prehensile. So they're going to use that tail to help them climb trees. Now, I don't have one of these. They are so unbelievably expensive to buy and set up. Maintain is not that expensive, but they are something like $3,000 here in Canada. In the US, they're pretty expensive too. To set them up, because it's a 3-foot lizard that's arboreal, you're gonna need lots of space this way and this way. That means a custom enclosure. Probably you can't get away with a 36, 18 zoom ed or anything like that. You're gonna have to get something that is custom made, and that's gonna be pretty expensive to buy. These enclosures can go for thousands and thousands of dollars. But once you get past all the expense, are they rewarding? And the answer is yes, yes, and also yes. They are hyper intelligent and they're fun to watch eat, and they're trainable as well. Now there's guys like Diana Reptiliatus. I love the way that he interacts with his animals. I can't wait to see the new enclosure he's making for his. And overall, because they're so beautiful to look at and they're so smart, interacting with them just seems so unbelievably amazing. Because you can train them to jump out on you and jump up your leg and climb up you and then eat something and then jump back into the enclosure. Sure, it takes a little bit of talent, skill, and patience, but realistically, if you're gonna have one of these animals, you need all of those things. These are slender bodied. They don't weigh that much. They're not that big. They're usually not the most handleable in terms, not like a bearded dragon. You're not gonna find these monitors as handleable or want to be handled as much as a bearded dragon, but they're not gonna be dangerous to you, even if they are bad tempered. Number 3, bearded dragons. Now, if you read nothing but PetSmart or Petco or whatever, or 1980s care guides, you're gonna think, what the heck is this guy talking about? I have mine in a 40-gallon breeder. These guys, yeah, well, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. These are semi-arboreal lizards. These lizards are gonna be found on fence posts, tree stumps, trees in the wild. So that's why I wanna give Diamond eventually a 4-foot tall enclosure, because the 2-foot tall one that I give him, he uses all the space, and I want to give him more. Now they're not that big, obviously. I mean, Diamond's a pretty small example of a male. Some males can get, I would say, maybe a third bigger than Diamond is now, and he's about the same size as an average female. Sorry to say it like that, but I understand your pain. I get it. I feel you, Diamond. And because they're omnivores, they're fun to feed. Diamond's gonna eat his salad pretty well nowadays. He's gonna eat things like crickets and roaches and worms. And what I love to see too is I'll often feed him his salad and crickets at the same time. He'll go crazy over the crickets, then he'll go to his salad, and then the leftover crickets will come to the salad too to eat, and then Diamond eats them up. It's pretty fun. He gets all the use out of his enclosure. You always want to keep them in at least a 4x2x2. Don't keep them in 40 or 75 gallon enclosures. You are a silly goose. That is outdated information. Please don't do that. It's really not that much to ask to give them something that is, 4 foot, which is going to be a little over twice their body length. Really easy. And then you give them perches and places to bask, because they do need really, really high basking temperatures, and they need really strong UVB, being that they're from Australia and they're not from the desert. They're from really kind of like shrublands. But still, it's very hot, it's very dry, or mostly dry for most of the year, and they're going to be out in the sun because they're diurnal. If you want an animal that's going to interact with you, that's going to be fun to feed, that's going to be smart, but not too smart, that's going to be able to move around, but not too much, then you really can't beat a bearded dragon. One of my favorite species in the entire world, and if you're watching from Australia, you can actually keep them. How about that? Number 2, let's go a little bit bigger, and this is of course for more advanced keepers, but still make a great pet. I'm talking about water tagus. Well, what the heck is that? Cayman lizards is what I'm talking about. Now, I would want to put tagus on the list, because I think if you want a big lizard as a beginner, not beginner, but less experienced keeper, it's almost always going to be a tagu, just because of black and white especially, because they're amazing pets, they're great, they're even tempered most of the time, but they're big. And some people just want big animals, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I called it a water tagu off the bat because a lot of the times that's what Cayman lizards are called. They're from similar parts of the world. You're going to find these in South America, and these things are going to be not only arboreal, but semi-aquatic. So that's why if you think the arboreal lizard we talked about in the emerald tree monitor, did I call them emerald tree skinks before? Emerald tree monitor, although emerald tree skinks are actually awesome too. But anyway, neither here nor there. Emerald tree monitors are smaller because the caimans get up to 4 feet and they're much heavier bodied. And of course, they're going to need much sturdier branches, the Cayman lizards will. But the emerald tree monitors don't need a water basin somewhere to swim, where Cayman lizards do. So this is a big enclosure. It is going to be out of this world cool to look at, but it's going to be a lot of money to set up and a lot of effort. And I've seen people do it the right way. But keep in mind, this is going to take a giant space in your home. This is not something you can buy. Not from a shelf anyway. It's going to be custom made for you. And these guys are snail eaters, crustacean eaters. They eat things like crawfish and clams and stuff like that in the wild. So they have these crushing jaws, which is why they have that big, big head. So don't worry about their teeth lacerating you. Worry about them crushing you if they accidentally bite you. But the good news is, Cayman lizards are oftentimes very well socialized in much the same way that a black and white tagu is. So if you want an animal that's arboreal, aquatic, and is going to eat very well for you, be super fun, and have that amazing coloration, I'm talking about so freaking cool. Green with an orange head? Come on, that is one of the coolest colorations of any lizard on the planet. And they're big, and they look like dragons, and they have those crazy scales on their back. Just, if I had the room for one, this would be the lizard that I would want. Just right up there with Asian water monitors in terms of cool factor, but too big for me to set up where I currently am. And that brings us to number 1. So that's going to be a super expensive animal too, right? No, we're talking about mountain horned dragons. Now, I know we talked about these a few weeks ago, and if you want to watch a video right here of me actually getting my mountain horned dragons at Nexpo, you can. Because I went to Daffy's Reptiles house. This was in October last year, and he had these mountain horned dragons, and I knew he had them, and I'm like, whatever. They're this whatever animal, you know, they're gonna jump around and not be handleable. And then he just like, oh, you want to see the mountain horns? And he takes them out and puts them on his head, and they just kind of like crawl up to it. I couldn't even believe the temperament and personality on these guys, and I fell in love. The problem is most mountain horned dragons come from the wild. It's very rare you find them captive bred. But as you can see here, it's just sitting in my hand. Now, of course, this is a baby. These will get a little bit bigger. And there's a few different species. So the ones that are most common are capra, They get a little bit bigger than the ones that I have, Lepidogaster, but the Capra you can't really find in captivity, or captive bred is what I mean, too much. And I found these in Thailand, of course, too. There's a video right here. Please watch this video. I put so much effort into these Thailand videos and nobody watches them. Why don't you want to watch me and Dave be idiots together? Please watch that video. Anyway, I love these guys because you can keep multiple of them together. They are an animal that like water too, so they're semi-arboreal, semi-aquatic, but they're much, much smaller. We're talking about a foot, maybe a bit bigger than a foot, and they're much smaller bodied, and they're insectivores, so you just throw in a bunch of crickets and worms, and then you're good to go. These are amazing animals. Just keep in mind with your water basin, they can't see standing water, so it has to have a bubbler or a current or something to make that water move. But either way, amazing little dragons with horns and beautiful coloration, beautiful personalities. That is my top 5 list. And I want to know below, as you hit the like button, which is so important if you want this channel to grow, thank you so much, let me know in the comments section what your favorite arboreal lizard is. Let me know. And as always, a special thanks to the Patreon supporters. You guys get videos early, discounts on merch, all that and more for as little as $1 a month. And because we do videos on Mondays and Thursdays, that means I'll see you in the next one.